Agent Garbo, the spy who lied about DDay. Juan Pujol Garcia, codename Agent Garbo, was perhaps one of the most significant spies in World War II, despite the fact that his story is frequently left out of history books. In the end, his efforts as a double agent for the Allies helped turn the tide of the war by enabling the Allies' success in Western Europe. Agent Garbo, nicknamed after the famous actress Greta Garbo, spent 2 years appearing to be a pro-Nazi zealot, gaining confidence while giving false intelligence to the German troops. He eventually provided false information, which helped the Allies win at Normandy, which ultimately meant the end of the war and the fall of the Reich. War turns Juan Pujol Garca against politics. Little is known about Garcia's early life, as is the case with any spy-turned-double agent. He was born in 1912 and grew up in Barcelona in a rather rich household, performing odd jobs throughout his early years. Despite growing up as something of an outcast, Garcia's life took a turn during the Spanish Civil War. In 1936, while running a small chicken farm, he was drafted for 6 months of service. The conflict was raging between fascist Republicans and far-left communist nationalists. He was mistreated by both sides. Republican fascists kidnapped Garcia's family and accused them of being counter-revolutionary. Meanwhile, the far left imprisoned him for speaking out against their dictatorial inclinations. Garcia allegedly refused to fire a single shot for either side, since he was loyal to neither. When the war ended in 1939, with the rise of Adolf Hitler in Germany, Garcia was left with a bitter disdain for both fascism and communism, and, by extension, Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia. Feeling deeply alienated by his experiences, Garcia opened a one-star motel in Madrid and remained disgusted by what he saw in his country. When World War II broke out, Garcia decided he had to contribute to the good of humanity and made an offer to the British. He believed they wouldn't refuse. Turning into a double agent. At the beginning of the war, Garcia decided he wanted to spy for the British because they represented the values he believed in. However, he was rejected each time he tried to contact them. The British simply did not understand what a hotel owner and former poultry farmer could accomplish for them in terms of espionage because he offered neither experience nor connections. Frustrated, Garcia made the decision to start by approaching the Germans with the goal of working as a double agent. He eventually succeeded in creating a persona as a passionate, pro-Nazi government official from Lisbon, Portugal, after building connections. The Germans were sold, he claimed, because his new identity had made it possible for him to travel to London on business. Afterward, he validated his intelligence by using a patchwork of British resources. He constructed a series of bogus tales and fictitious agents, ranging from tourist guides to newsreels and movies, which he then passed to his German handlers. This proved to be a masterstroke for 2 reasons. First off, Garcia's reports were so convincing that the British intelligence who intercepted his messages started looking into his fictitious identity. Furthermore, he only had to point the finger at one of his made-up agents if the Nazis found out that he had distributed any false information. After 2 years of covert operations, the British became aware of Garcia's disinformation campaign in 1942. They were so impressed that they hired him to work as a double agent for MI5, the British intelligence service. Garcia played that role, feeding his German superiors a mixture of total fiction, true material of limited military worth, and valuable military intelligence purposefully delayed. Garcia's lies saw allied successes. During Operation Torch, the British campaign for North Africa, Agent Garbo proved to the British his worth. Garcia told his Nazi superiors the truth. British warships were en route to important ports in North Africa, all being camouflaged in Mediterranean colors. However, at the time, his dispatches were delivered by a pilot for Royal Dutch Airlines and were thus constrained by shipping schedules. His intelligence reached the German Navy too late because he carefully planned the date of its delivery. Nevertheless, when the communication finally arrived, its information was accurate. His Nazi handlers replied, "We're sorry they got here too late, but your final reports were fantastic." in writing. To keep up his maze of fictitious undercover spies, Garcia had to constantly come up with new ideas. He once pretended that his agent got sick before failing to disclose significant and evident fleet movements from the Liverpool port. He even faked the agent's death and published an obituary in a local newspaper to support the story. He gained the trust of the Nazi high command by such deft actions, and they decided to start radio transmissions with him rather than send messages by plane. They sent him their most latest ciphers, which Garcia immediately gave to the British to help in their attempts to crack the code. Juan Pujol Garcia had developed a strong espionage position by 1944. The Nazis had no reason to doubt his work at that moment, which would help him in his biggest achievement, an undeniable role in D-Day. Fooling the entire German army on D-Day. On the French coast of Normandy in 1944, British and American forces were preparing for a long-awaited land invasion of Western Europe. This invasion, codenamed Operation Overlord, is better known today as D-Day. Operation Overlord was supported by its sister mission, Operation Fortitude, which was tasked with convincing the German High Command that the Allied invasion was planned for the French port of Pas-de-Calais. Pas-de-Calais is the geographically closest point in France to England. Hitler personally thought that Pas-de-Calais was the most sensible place for the British to launch an attack. German soldiers therefore fortified those beaches much more heavily than those at the actual Normandy assault location. In southeastern England, the Allies set up fake airfields, armies of pressurized air tanks, and decoy ships as part of Operation Fortitude in an effort to confirm the Germans' suspicions. These decoys, detected by German air reconnaissance, did their objective. However, in addition to physical deceptions, the Allies also spread false information, which is where Juan Pujol Garcia came into play. During this time, Garcia maintained his previous technique of transmitting strategically correct but precisely delayed information. In his most dramatic move as a double agent, at 3 o'clock a.m. on D-Day, he sent an urgent correspondence regarding the Normandy invasion, only to be met by radio silence. The radio operators awoke the next day, realizing the full significance of his message. But it was too late. The invasion had already started in Normandy. The only thing Garcia said in response after the Germans acknowledged receiving his letter was, "I cannot accept excuses or negligence. If not for my ideas, I would give up on the task." 3 days after the invasion, Hitler ordered the bulk of Germany's lethal and battle-hardened panzer divisions to go to Normandy to protect it. This would have been catastrophic for the Allied forces, who were struggling to build a beachhead. By the time Juan Pujol Garcia intervened with a crucial memo, the tanks had already started moving. In it, he was successful in persuading the German High Command that the Normandy offensive was only a distraction. He insisted that the true invasion would still pass through Pas-de-Calais. The forces turned around and waited. 2 armored divisions and 19 infantry divisions stayed in Pas-de-Calais throughout July and August, ready for an invasion that would never happen. The double agent disappears. Thousands of lives were probably saved by Garcia's work. Indeed, the official history of British intelligence in World War II states that the engagement of the panzer divisions in the Normandy campaign definitely might have shifted the balance of the war. Ironically, D-Day only helped to improve Garcia's reputation among the Reich. Hitler personally presented Garcia with an Iron Cross for his service shortly after, and the Nazi High Command was unaware of his lie. While still working for the British, Garcia offered his humble thanks for honor he considered himself really unworthy. Garcia was officially acknowledged by the British as a member of the Order of the British Empire in addition to receiving the Iron Cross, making him the only person to have received such honors from both sides of the conflict during World War II. British intelligence moved him to Caracas, allowing him to live in anonymity with his family in Venezuela, where he died in 1988 while writing his book. Thanks for watching.